There we go. Greetings, everyone. Again, for those who've just joined us, this is a webinar called Keeping the Peace During the Gaza War, Preventing Jewish-Arab Violence Within the Green Line. It is a co-sponsored Partners for Progressive Israel and the Abraham Initiative's webinar. So I want to say hi to everyone in the US, in Israel, and in Palestine, and other places in the world who've joined us today. This for Partners for Progressive Israel is the latest webinar in a series called Conversations with Israel and Palestine. My name is Ron Skolnick. I organize the webinars on behalf of Partners for Progressive Israel. Today's co-sponsor is the Abraham Initiatives, and that is an organization that works to fulfill the promise of full and equal citizenship and complete equality of social and political rights for Israel's Jewish and Arab citizens, as embodied in Israel's Declaration of Independence, as a state that is both the national homeland of the Jewish people and a full and equal home for its Arab Palestinian national minority, and also a state that exists peacefully alongside a Palestinian state, fulfilling the national aspirations of the Palestinian people. Partners for Progressive Israel is an American not-for-profit that is dedicated to the achievement of a durable and just peace between Israel and its neighbors, and that includes an end to Israel's occupation based on a two-state solution. Partners supports Israelis working to ensure social justice, civil rights, Jewish-Arab partnership, and equality for all of Israel's inhabitants. The organization seeks to deepen Americans' understanding of Israel's and Palestine's complexities so that they can better advocate for a progressive future for all the inhabitants of the region. Before I hand it over to today's discussion moderator, Professor Sam Fleischacker, I'll just mention that Partners is glad to be bringing this webinar to you all for free. But if you enjoy it and want more programming like it, you know what to do. Visit progressiveisrael.org and make a contribution. And the same can be said, of course, for the Abraham Initiatives, which we'll put their link up in the chat. A quick note about the chat. The chat will be open, and folks are welcome to share their opinions and thoughts on the chat. But if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A. We're not going to be monitoring, the panelists won't be monitoring the chat for questions. It just makes it much more difficult and lets them focus on the things that they want to say. So questions into the Q&A, and chat is for chatting. Now let me introduce our panel in brief, and I'll hand things over to them. Shahira Shalaby is co-deputy CEO at the Abraham Initiatives, where she oversees the work on mixed cities, in and on mixed cities. She is the former deputy mayor of Haifa, a former city councilor, I believe an outgoing city councilor as of today, and was among the founders of the Palestinian feminist movement in Israel. And I just learned of Standing Together. It's not in her bio, but we just chatted about that. She's established initiatives working to improve the status of Arab women in Israel, and has consulted for social change organizations on questions of leadership, strategic thinking, and resource development and management. She's a group facilitator specializing in dialogue, conflict resolution, and facilitator training. And she holds a master's degree in religious studies and a bachelor's degree in social work. Ruth Lewin-Chen is also co-deputy CEO at the Abraham Initiatives. She previously led the organization's Mixed Cities program, and she has rich experience directing conflict resolution programs and facilitating dialogue groups for Arab and Jewish youth. She spent a decade facilitating such dialogue groups of Arab and Jewish youth with Seeds of Peace, Diva Chaviva, YMCA International in Jerusalem, and more. Ruth studied at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, where she received a bachelor's in psychology and comparative literature and a master's in organizational psychology. And last, not least, Sam Fleischacker is LAS Distinguished Professor of Philosophy at the University of Illinois in Chicago and founder of the university's Jewish-Muslim Initiative. He works on moral and political philosophy and the philosophy of religion, and is the author of 8 books, including The Good and the Good Book, and Divine Teaching and the Way of the World. He received his PhD from Yale University and joined the board of Partners for Progressive Israel in 2015, and has also been a longtime supporter of Americans for Peace Now and the New Israel Fund. So now let me hand things over to Sam Fleischacker, and I'll be back at the end to wrap up proceedings. I hope it's an enriching discussion for you all. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ron, and thank you to the Abraham Initiatives and to Partners for Progressive Israel for organizing this webinar. It's a very important topic that we're dealing with today, shared society, Jewish-Arab relations, and in Israel today, especially in the wake of the October 7th attacks in the Gaza war. I want to also thank Ruth and Shahira for taking the time to be with us. And I'm very much looking forward to what you have to say. So let me just start with a very general question. How would each of you, both of you, describe the current state of Jewish-Arab relations? Is it different in different places and different areas like higher education, politics, day-to-day life? How are things going at the moment in that respect?
Okay, I think, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for having us here. I know this is an important issues that we're discussing today based on the situation, the general situation in Israel. What's happening inside Israel. It's also important because it's influenced the conflict in the area, and also it might teach something about the complexity of the conflict that we're having here. So for your question, I think what I can say that before the war, we were going through central crisis related to the regime coup in Israel. So different protests were uh, demonstrating against the government, and we were all dreaming and thinking that the most crucial thing that should happen in Israel is changing this regime and changing this this government. And that situation brought us and to start to think about how to build and to continue building the relation between Arabs and Jews. And we started to think about a new way of thinking about how to cooperate, because in general in Israel we talk about the shared society in terms of good relations, and in terms of resources and budgets and sharing the power. But in this case of crisis, we started to think about political cooperation for the first time, that groups of Arabs and Jews, mainly Jews, started to think that in order to change the political situation in Israel, we need to cooperate politically with the Arabs in Israel, because was the only way that we can win the right wing groups in Israel. This is what the situation. This is what the discourse before this war. And adding to this is the situation that the Arabs really went through a great progressive during the last 30 years. They are now, we can say, they are more integrated in the academy, in the workplaces, and the shared living situation is more familiar in Israel. And talking about shared society and shared spaces become to be mainstream in Israel. It means that anywhere that you go, to any city, to any workplace, you will see Arabs and Jews are working together. But this is what the situation that made the leaders of the workplaces, of the universities, to think that they should adjust their systems in order to include Arabs, in order to make the Arab feel more convenient, more comfortable in the workplaces and in the academy, and etc. But after the war, we just like it's like we um we were all shocked by what's happened, and it stopped all the progress that we were working toward as a shared society organizations. So we started to feel that we are going back to untrust, to fear from each other, to treating each other. We can say that in some places that the Arabs were attacked by groups of Jews. The Arabs stopped feeling safe in the public space. Some workers in this shared working spaces or places, they stopped going to work. They felt that they are suspicious by their co-workers. The Jews were afraid from Arabs. They thought that Arabs are going to attack them or they support terror. So most of the things that we built during the last 30 years, we needed to rebuild it again. And now we are talking again about recovering and building the trust between the two groups again. It means that we have a lot of things to do in the future in order to go back to the previous situation that we had before this war.
Ruth, do you want to add to that?
No, I think Shahira described the trends that we're seeing, as well as the change in the relations between Jews and Arabs now in compared to the situation that we saw before October 7th. And yes, I mean, our main mission at the moment is really trying to see how we can stop these trends of mistrust and fear between the communities, as Shahira described, and really continuing the more positive trends that we saw before, also led by the protest against the government and the change in the judicial reform.
Mm-hmm.
So if I may add to this,
Yeah.
you asked what's happening here, and we are just, we had the local elections yesterday. And in the phenomenon that I was trying to bring here, talking about political cooperation, really formed a few joint lists in the mixed cities. We have 5 joint lists in Haifa. We have 1 joint list. When I mean joint, it means Arabs and Jews in running to the local elections. We had the 1 joint list in Beersheba for the first time, and 1 joint list in one of the mixed cities. So the mixed cities were trying to lead this progress cooperation between Arabs and Jews. But I still don't understand what is waiting for us in the future and what should we do in order to help really the two societies to recover, to rebuild the trust between each other, and to continue the working together, because for the daily life, they live next to each other. We are not talking about it's not 2 states, it's not 2 separated societies. In some places, they live in the same building, they live next to each other, door to door, and in some places they work together, they go to the same institutions, they're driving in the same roads. So it's very important and crucial for now to think, what should we do in order to keep this good relationship? I don't know if I can define it good or not, but this safe relationship, and to prevent escalation and violence in the street, the way that we last in May 2021.
So I wanted actually to get to May 2021. That's precisely the next direction I wanted to ask you about. We saw violence in the streets in May 2021, and one might have expected, since the stakes have been higher and the current war more horrific on both sides, that you would see more intercommunal violence. But thus far, it doesn't seem that we've seen that. What's your explanation for that? Do you think that there have been changes since 2021 that have helped, or how do you see the fact that we haven't? What's your thought about why we haven't seen more intercommunal violence thus far, at least, the way we did in 2021?
So I would like to answer that, Sam. Thank you for this question. And you are right. I mean, we all thought that we might see incidents of violence as we had during May 2021, especially because right after the war broke on October 7th, we saw efforts made by right-wing politicians, specifically, who tried to convince the Jewish public in Israel that Arab citizens in Israel identify with Hamas and would act violently against Jews if they only had a chance. One specific incident was made by Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is the Minister for National Security, and he said, publicly during October 11th, only 4 days after the war broke, he actually instructed the police commissioner, to prepare for a scenario of violence, and he said, you should prepare the police to violence as seen during May 2021. And by this statement, he actually created a panic, and he really helped right-wing activists in deepening the alienation towards the Arab citizens. And he deepened both fear and mistrust, because what he actually said in this statement is, Jews, beware, because the Arab citizens here that you think that they live, like Shahira said, they live in the same neighborhood, in the same building, he said, beware of them. They actually identify with Hamas. They all want you killed, or want to treat you in a violent way, and they will do that if they only had a chance. And that really created a sense of panic in Israel among Jewish citizens. And actually what we saw is that all these scenarios were not really fulfilled. Instead, the Arab citizens were affected themselves by the war. They suffered economic losses. They lost their sense of personal security, similarly to the Jewish public in Israel. And they also suffered loss of lives. People who were killed during October 7th, Palestinian citizens of Israel who were abducted to Gaza, people who were killed in the Negev from rockets that were launched by Hamas. Okay, they suffered as citizens of Israel. So we saw all that happening. What we see is that the Arab citizens of Israel are really an integral part of the Israeli society. Although they don't receive equal services and equal budgets, and they do not really receive the same governmental support as the Jewish population. And what we saw is that despite what activists on the right, such as Ben-Gvir, may say, the Arab citizens actually understand their role in the country. And during times of crisis, such as the one that we are currently experiencing, this sense of shared destiny becomes even more crucial, and it's even more tangible than it was before. But another aspect which also contributed to us not experiencing violence between Jews and Arabs on the streets of Israel is that we also see that the discrimination and the mistreatment of Arab citizens by the government, it is currently at an all-time high. And considering the events that occurred on October 7th, which really crossed every moral boundary, and the harsh war which is currently raging in Israel and in Gaza, there is a perception that the current state of Jewish society, it's not really ready for complexity at the moment. And any expression of nationalism or solidarity with the Palestinian people among the Palestinian citizens of Israel, it may result in a severe response and in escalation of the situation. And therefore, what we currently see is that Palestinian citizens of Israel actually tend to avoid going out to the streets or protesting. They refrain from speaking out against the ongoing conflict, even when their loved ones are in Gaza and in mortal danger, and even when they are being killed. And we see this fear more prevalent in Arab society now than it was in the past. So all these issues really led to the current situation in which we do not see the May 2021 events happening right now in Israel.
You've given a very plausible explanation and some dark reasons why we're not seeing the violence breaking out because of shared suffering and also fear. I don't mean to need to invite you to unnecessary bragging, but is it possible that some of the work of the Abraham Initiatives and of Standing Together and some similar shared society groups since 2021 have improved things? Is that part of the explanation, or would you say that you'd like to say that, but it isn't a major factor?
Yeah, if I can sponsor this on being is political and social activists. It's always a question how much influence do we bring and how much change do we bring. I came from the feminist movement, and I supported hundreds, thousands of women just to improve their skills and to go to the academy and to go to work and to be independent. So sometimes I ask myself how much influence I brought to the feminist field or not. I think I had a feeling that I did my job, and I was there when it needed. And now talking about the role of the shared society organization in this war, in keeping the good relationship and building the platform that will prevent violence. So I will say, I will get back to this, but I want to say one main thing that I was really, I was busy with, okay? One of the most popular terms that was common in Israel after the war is, I hope I can say it clearly in English, is this illusionment. It means התפכחות in Hebrew. It means that itpakut has two meaning in Hebrew. It's like I'm opening my eyes and opening my mind. So people felt that now it's the time for itpakut, to be smarter and to see the reality vividly. Okay, no one is going to play games now with me. So because I understand. So I analyze it that we had three main disillusionment processes. One was for the people from the Jewish society that they said, you will never, you can never trust Arabs. They will be always your enemies. This is the first group, and they decided that this is the position that they're taking. The second group, it was the Arab society that they said, okay, it's becoming too dangerous. This is not a game that we want to play. We support the Palestinian society. We Palestinian, the Palestinian people. We are Palestinians ourselves, but this is not the way. It's not in my name, okay? Don't use my name in order to kill people. Don't use my name in order to bring violence and escalation. So this is the second kind of disillusionment. And the third one was the shared society activists who decided that the only way that we can act is being together, because this is the only hope that we have in Israel. So this is what they did. At the first day of the attack, they started to act in different levels. First level, the shared society organization organized themselves and had a Zoom meeting at the same day, at October the 7th, that I think more than 200 people attended to this meeting, and they decided that they will act in the field, in different tracks in the field, in different areas, in order to prevent escalation and violence. They decided that they will have a local groups to work in the mixed cities, a group to to mentor fake news, a group that will work in the media and groups that will work with the mid leaders. It means with the local authorities leaders. So this is was the first thing that's happened. And the second thing that's happened, and this is the thing that I am personally was surprised, that people in the shared cities or in the mixed cities arranged themselves immediately at the same day, and they established what we call it today, the people who are keeping partnership, the partnership keepers. So they created local groups that includes Arabs and Jews, Arab and Jews activists, and they decided that they will work with the mayor of the cities, they will work with the staff of the municipalities, and they will work also with the police stations in the local police station in their cities, and they will work together in order to be there to prevent violence in a case it will happen. So they divided themselves into groups. They took missions and themselves, and they decided into 3 or 4 ways to act. One way is just to be aware. They just opened WhatsApp groups, and they decided they want to take information if something will happen in one place, and they went and they intervened. If something happened, they started to solve the conflicts, small conflicts that are started to appear based on the tension in the relationship between Arabs and Jews. And they started also to mentor fake news, because a lot of fake news were going on in the mixed cities in a very detailed way. Such a kind of thing I can tell you that a group from Hadar, one of the neighborhood in Haifa, they started a Jewish group, said that we saw Arab young people are beating Jews. If you are there, just go and protect your neighborhood. They're throwing stones on. So this group that went to this place that they were described, and then they published a notice, and they encouraged also the mayor of the city to publish a notice saying nothing happening in Hadar, don't go, don't be involved. It's a fake news. And this is the way that they were working in a local level in order to make their cities safe. And if you ask me why they are doing this, because they learned a lesson. They learned a lesson from May 2021. And the activists say that if we will be there together, we really can prevent violence. If we encourage the mayor to take responsibility, then the mayor will decide to work with the police. The mayor will close the city in case that people want to come from outside in order to make to demonstrate or to fight with the local residents of the city. So this very systematic war, local systematic war, really helped the city to be safe.
Yes, that's good to hear.
Yeah, if I might something, maybe also Ruth can add for this. I think also the mayors of the cities, because with the absence of the state, the local leadership is very central in this case. So the mayors in the local places, not only mixed cities, really took crucial and central work and bringing and changing the discourse and encouraging people to support each other and to be patient to each other.
Ruth, did you want to say something?
Yes, I just want to add something, and really, I mean, it's not only us civil society organizations who learned from what happened during May 2021, but like Shahira said, it's also the local leadership and the municipalities that understand their role in preventing escalation and preventing violence. And none of the mayors want violence to take place during their shift while they are responsible for the city. And I would like to give an example because that really describes the shift and the learning by the mayors. So in Lod, during the war, during the first days of the war, Yair Revivo, who is the mayor of Lod, he was also re-elected yesterday, he actually shared like a story of father of one of the residents, the Arab residents of Lud. Lud is a mixed city in the center of Israel. Approximately a third of the population in Lud is Arabs, and the rest are Jewish. And during May 2021, we saw clashes between the population, and two people were actually killed in Lud, one a Palestinian citizen and one is a Jewish citizen. And Yair Revivo, the mayor, published a post about this person, as I said, the father of one of the residents of Lud, who was actually working in protecting Jewish citizens in the city of Sderot, and he was killed during the Hamas attack. And Yair Revivo conveyed a message of peace to all the city residents, urging them to act responsibly and to protect the city's communal fabric and the relations between Jews and Arabs. And this post made by Yair Revivo, it actually signals, it shows a departure from the previous stance of the mayor that we saw during May 2021. And that actually indicates how he really wanted to prevent violence and escalation between Jews and Arabs, and how we understand that he has a responsibility as a mayor to all the residents of the city. So that's an example to the lessons learned from May 2021.
I'm going to ask one more question of my own, and then we have quite a large number in the Q&A already, and I will get to as many of them as I can. The one other question that I wanted to ask you about is a very specific issue that has come up, been relevant to shared society now since, well, before October 7th, namely the fact that Itamar Ben-Gvir, perhaps the most virulently and openly anti-Arab politician ever to hold a position, a cabinet position, is now the national security minister in charge of the police. And I wonder what impact that has had on shared society.
Okay, so I would also like to answer this question. We deal a lot with the issue of personal security, especially among the Arab society in Israel, but also in mixed cities. And we know that the issues of personal security have a huge influence on the relations between Jews and Arabs. And therefore, the identity of the Minister of National Security also affects how the police works, and how the personal security situation is for both Jews and Arabs in Israel. And that has a huge impact on the situation in Israel as a whole. So I'll just give a few examples. One is the Minister Ben-Gvir's policy that has led to a significant rise in firearms in public areas. Since the beginning of the war. It was actually a policy that he tried to implement before, but the war really gave that a push. And the Ministry of National Security made it much, much easier to obtain weapons without following any crucial procedures like psychological evaluations and other processes that were crucial before the war. And the consequence of that is overuse of firearms, which you would maybe expect to provide a sense of security, but it actually leads to a sense of less security in the public sphere, especially among Arab citizens who might be the victims of such legal weapons, which are much more common in the public sphere now. And another example that I would like to give is that Arab citizens are actually being arrested now by the police. Many of them, the police, instead of being an organization that also guards and provides personal security is actually perceived now as a threat to the personal security of Arab citizens in Israel. And there is a great deal of fear among Arab citizens who wish to demonstrate. And the police chief is actually threatened to, he said, we will transport demonstrators, whoever wants to demonstrate against the war in Gaza, we will transport you to Gaza in buses. And despite the court approval for demonstrations, the police is preventing most of the demonstrations from taking place. And it's not only that Arabs cannot demonstrate, but also many people were arrested because of posts on social media. And what happened is that what we saw is that the minute that in certain communities there was a rumor that someone posted something on Facebook, before people even understood what is written in the post, usually it's in Arabic, and most Israelis do not speak Arabic and they cannot read these posts, but they started in many communities behaving in a very aggressive manner towards these Arab citizens due to the posts that they heard were supporting actions done by Hamas, and it didn't even matter whether it was true or fake. And what happened is that the Arab citizens really experienced violence and threats. And what we saw is that the police did not do anything to guard these people, did not do anything to say they weren't convicted, maybe there are no evidences that they did something wrong, and the police was not there to guard Arab citizens. And that's actually a huge danger for individual rights of citizens here in Israel. So that's a change that we see under Ben Gvir as a minister.
Frightening. I'm now going to turn to questions in the chat. I'm going to at least start by simply taking them in the order in which they came in. And I apologize to everyone. We have 25 minutes, Moats, a little bit less than that, 25 minutes left, a little bit less than that. So we will almost certainly not get to all the questions, but there's some really excellent questions here, and I hope you'll be able to get to some of them. So first of all, we have a question about municipal election results for yesterday. Haaretz is reporting that ultra-Orthodox and far right-wing religious Zionist parties have won big there. Is that, do you have a reaction to that? How do you think that might affect your work?
Anything? Let me take it. So we don't have until now we don't have the final results of the local elections because I can't analyze now what's happened because it's only just finished and I need to read all the results and watch it and see what are the new trends. But in general, we were aware and we were prepared that right-wing and Orthodox groups are going to will take more places in the elections because of the war. And we could see the escalation, we could see the racism in the discourse in Israel. And this is really affects the way that people vote in Israel. But I was very really concerned about what will happen in mixed cities, and we could see that in some of the mixed cities there are joint lists for Arabs and Jews that they're running together and they are going to be in a coalition. This is one of the things that we are trying to encourage now. The mayors, the new elected mayors, most of them are not new. but in the mixed cities to take the Arab legs to be in the coalitions, because this is the way that we believe that if you want to run a city, you should share the power with the minorities in your city. And if you share the power, we call it a seat next to the table. If you give a seat next to the table to the people, to the residents of the city, especially when they are minorities, if you listen to their voices, if you will be aware and to their special needs, and you will take care and encourage and push for quality and equal services for the minorities of your cities, especially for the Palestinian people of the city, you will ensure that you will have a good a living and a good relationship between Arabs and Jews in the city. This is what we want to do in the mixed cities, but in general in Israel, in order to change the general situation. First, we need this war to be stopped. The first thing, we need also to work hard in order to rebuild the peace in the area, and not only inside Israel, because we are here talking about the relationship between Palestinians and Arabs inside Israel. But in general, the problems are related to the general conflict in the area, to the war that's happening now. And so we need to start to think about the future. We need to imagine the future. We need to imagine the peace again. We need a peace agreement for the area, and we need a solution. This is the way that we can deal with the crisis inside Israel.
I would like just to add to this issue, because I think it's really important. I mean, we understand, and I think Shahira and I gave examples to how the local level really influences the relations between Jews and Arabs. But we have to understand, I mean, and so we have the partial results of the municipal elections, but it's not only how many Jewish city councillors are going to be and Arab city councillors, but it's also how the coalition is going to look like. And that's and the role of the mayors who were elected now is really to make sure that the Arab city councillors are a part of the coalition, that since in all mixed cities the mayors are Jewish, that they appoint a salaried deputy mayor who is a Palestinian, okay, to make sure that they don't let radical right-wing city councillors who are known for their racist agenda a seat in the coalition. Okay, that's a part of the responsibility that we refer to when we say like the role of the mayors and the local leadership. So it doesn't end with the votes. It actually, the work really begins now.
Switching topics somewhat significantly, we have a second question from David Abraham, who is one of the board members of Partners for Progressive Israel, he points out that before October 7th, it looked as if after a lot of protests against the judicial coup, in which the occupation mostly went unmentioned, except for small groups, it looked as if the protest against the judicial coup was slowly beginning to recognize more openly that the occupation itself threatens Israeli democracy, and that protests need to include that. But then October 7th happened, and David asks whether that link between protests against the occupation and protests in favor of democracy can be reestablished given the current suspicion and hostility between Jewish Israelis and Palestinians. Do you think it can be reestablished?
Shahira, you want to take it or you want me?
You can start, I will add.
Okay, I mean, I think first of all, I mean, of course, and again, we talked about it. I mean, of course, that the war is not good in like changing perceptions, especially among the Jewish society, towards the Palestinians and making them understand that the occupation is actually a barrier for good relations. So I mean, and obviously it was not good, and I agree with his analysis that the protests before the war were starting to recognize that the occupation is a part of the problem. However, I do think that more and more people now understand that there has to be some kind of a solution. I mean, of a real solution, and that we cannot continue the way it was so far, and that does not really provide us any security as citizens of Israel, whether Jews or Arabs. And I believe that that will also make people understand that we have to solve this issue and deal with the issue of the occupation and its consequences.
Shahira, you want to add?
Yeah. I'd say that just like that we mentioned before at the beginning of this conversation, when we were saying that the protests were a turning point in the political discourse in Israel for a while, and we had a hope that we will build in this turning point in order to build the cooperation, the political cooperation that will lead to Israel to be more democratic, that will lead to the awareness about the occupation, that will push for a political solution for the area. But now, after the war, we need to, how we say, to rethink our actions. We need to reread our papers in order to be prepared to the next stage. If you ask me today, I really don't know what to do, because first of all, we don't control anything. We don't know when this war is going over. We don't know what will happen in Gaza. We don't know what will happen in the area. We are all, I live in Haifa, and Haifa, we are waiting for a war with the south every day. It's so each time that I hear the aircraft, I'm starting to think, does the war started with Lebanon? So first of all, we really need, as people of this state, to feel safe. We need to understand what will happen tomorrow. It's not only for the people in Israel, it's only for all the people in the area, because everyone is concerned what's going to happen. People in Jordan, in Syria, in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, everything is waiting what is going to happen. And I'm asking myself, why do we need it?
I'm going to skip down the list a little bit. There are two more questions that are very interesting. I hope I will get back to them. But there are questions further down about the work of the Abraham initiatives. And I want to make sure that we say some things about that, that you say some things about that before we close. There's a question about whether your work is different when you're working in the mixed cities from when you're working in Arab towns and villages. You might also say a little something for some people who don't know about what the mixed cities are, but especially whether you work differently in different places and have different agendas. And then there was a question about whether you work in East Jerusalem and whether you work on the West Bank. So if you could talk a little bit about the Abraham Initiative's work in all those areas, that would be great.
Okay, so maybe I'll start by talking a little bit about our work specifically in mixed cities. Okay, so when we talk about mixed cities, we refer to cities in which Jews and Arabs live in the same city. We talk about 7 main mixed cities in Israel: Haifa, Acre, Nofa Galil, and Ma'alot Tarshiha in the north of Israel, as well as Ramle, Lud, and Tel Aviv Jaffa in the center of Israel. And what we in the Abraham initiatives, we actually work in this sphere for years, saying that the government has to be aware of the fact that mixed cities, due to the national conflict, okay, between Israel and Palestine, mixed cities in which Jews and Arabs live together, they have unique challenges that other cities, whether are Jewish or Arab, they don't face these challenges. And we believe that there has to be a policy that focuses on creating equity and integration in these cities so that the Arab society will not be discriminated, and to work on integration between the populations. And actually right now, like a minute after the municipal elections, I mean, we can really feel what the situation today is, that if a mayor of a mixed city wants to promote equity and integration, then they will do that. But today, there isn't a policy that really comes top down from the government that to make sure that such steps are being taken by the mayors. And what we do is mainly working with policy makers, with members of the Knesset, with the professionals in the different ministries in Israel, in order to really make sure that they understand the challenges and they understand what kind of policy has to be designed specifically for mixed cities. And I just want to give one example. In recent years, we see a positive change in the Ministry of Welfare and Social Security, in which there is a policy which is being designed, a work which is being done with the teams of welfare in the mixed cities, in the municipalities of the mixed cities, in order to really understand what has to be different when you provide welfare services in a mixed city in compared to a homogeneous city. And we also saw now, after the work started, we really saw the difference in how the professionals in the welfare departments, in the services that they give, in their strength, working together, social workers, Jews and Arabs, in how the departments dealt with this complexity in compared to what we saw in May 2021. And that's due to this investment that was done, came again top down.
I just want to bring the big picture. The Abraham Initiatives is an organization that aim to promote and to create and to promote and to strengthen the shared society in Israel. And when we talk about shared society, we are talking about two main things that we are thinking about. First of all is improving the status of the Arab minority in Israel, giving more equal services and acting and struggling for equality in Israel and for justice. So we believe that in order to build the shared society, the Arab society in Israel should be equal and should be get equal rights and equal services and from the state of Israel in terms of, we call it recognition, and also services that they take. This is the first part. The second part is we are trying to help Arabs and Jews to build their cooperation. And especially we are not talking about only the good relationship between people, because we believe that good relation between people is related to shared living. But when we talk about shared society, we are talking about not relation, but power relation. It means that we need that people to understand that in order to build justice in Israel and equality, you need to think about your partner as equal partner. You need to share power. You need to share your resources. So we have an educational program. We educate for non-racism in the high schools and med schools. We have a program that dealing with policing, with over-policing in the Arab society, profiling and arresting people because they're Arab, and treating minorities that in a conflict situation in Israel. This is one program that we are leading. Ruth described our Make Cities program, and we also have we have a program that we work with changing policy, because we have a public department that we really work in a very intensive way with the Knesset member and with the ministries, because we think that in order to bring the change to the field, you need to change the policy of the government and the institutions in order to bring the change to the ground.
Great.
We don't work in the West Bank and we don't work in the East Jerusalem.
Okay. I'm going to move back, and actually, in some ways, this will dovetail with what you were just telling us. We had a question about normalization. The question just says, is normalization a hated term? I can answer that in one word, yes. The question, I think perhaps what the questioner may also want to ask is, are you against normalization? Are you, is that something you have to wrestle with?
The term, we don't use the term normalization inside Israel, because this terminology is related to the relationship between Palestinians outside of Israel and the Israelis and the Israeli Jewish in Israel. This is because normalization is the way of living in Israel, because we live with each other. We have to. We go to the universities together. We are working at the same places. We're buying from the same stores. We have to have a kind of normalization, but we don't use this terminology. We call it mainstreaming. The mainstreaming of the shared society model is the way that we are defining our work, because we would like it to be just normal. We would like people to think that if you go to a store and they will find that the woman that is serving you is an Arab woman because she has a head cover, you won't be shocked. Okay, you will understand that this is the normal life, the normal way of living together. And if you hear Arabic in the street, you won't be afraid, because you will understand that this is a shared place, this is a shared state, and not only city. So we call it one of our processes, one of our goals is to mainstream the idea of the shared society in different places. So we support the workplaces in order to think about the mixed workplaces, the shared workplaces, and to put efforts in order to improve the relationship between Arabs and Jews. And we help also mayors and leaders. This is the idea of promoting shared society, to make it the normal way of life.
We are almost out of time, and so I'm just going to ask you one general question, which might provide a good way of wrapping up. And that is, are there hopeful developments as far as you're concerned, or what hopeful developments do you see as far as shared society goes in Israel right now? And what are the main obstacles or threats that you're worried about? So I'm not going to say you have to leave us on an optimistic note. It's a dark time. But if you give us maybe a realistic assessment of where you think the state of your work is in the medium term, not necessarily just at the moment, that would be great, I think. Ruth, you want to start this one?
Sure. I mean, as we said, I think that more and more people understand that we are here to stay, both Jews and Arabs, and it's our work to do whatever we can in order to maintain good relations between the populations. I think that many people here in Israel are tired of politicians who try to separate and provoke, and more people are just like taking responsibility for the situation, becoming active. I think that the civil society is, especially the one promoting shared society, is stronger than it was before. So yeah, I think that's something to be optimistic about.
I'm glad there is something to be optimistic about. Shahira, do you have anything to add? Yeah.
Yeah, I share Ruth's thoughts about being optimistic, but I think one of the obstacles that we have now is government. Okay, you asked about the obstacles. I hope that we will be able to form a government that will support what's happening in the street. Today, I told Ruth that I feel exhausted because I need to prevent bad things to happen. As an activist, I need to develop the new good things and not to prevent the bad things. So I hope that we will be able to think about the future more than correcting what's happening here.
Good. Yes, I hope so too. Thank you very much, both of you. I am going to turn it over to Ron to close it out. I do want to assure everyone that this is being recorded and will be at some point available, but I'm not exactly sure how. Maybe, Ron, you can say something about that as you close.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Shahira and Ruth. The recording, yeah, it should be on Partners for Progressive Israel's YouTube channel and website, hopefully by the end of the week. So you'll be able to find it there, and Partners will be sending out an email, an e-blast, those who are on the email list, notifying folks that it's now available. Thank you to everyone who joined us. I thought this was a really great opportunity to drill down a little bit into things happening on the local level, things that we don't always discuss, but are really important to know about. So I really want to thank our panelists. Thank you also, Lydia Woolley, who's the program director in North America for the Abraham Initiatives, for her tireless work getting this together, and my colleague Dinesh Sharma, who's been diligently working the webinar behind the scenes. Hope everyone who tuned in enjoyed it. And again, for those who missed the opening, today's program has been free, but generous contributions will enable Partners for Progressive Israel and the Abraham Initiatives to deliver these events at no cost. So please visit progressiveisrael.org, check out upcoming programming, and if you can, make a donation. And hope you'll be able to tune in next time. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.